The stars watched in cold silence as the drama unfolded across the emptiness of space. The Viridian refugee vessel, Eternal Dawn, drifted helplessly, its engines sputtering as the last reserves of power kept life support functioning at minimal levels. Around it, in a perfect formation that spoke of military precision, 8 hegemony warships formed an inescapable net. Inside the Eternal Dawn, Captain Liraval pressed her four-fingered hand against the viewscreen, her iridescent skin reflecting the harsh glare of the hegemony ship's exterior lights. The other Viridians huddled in small groups throughout the vessel: scientists, artists, teachers, and their families. They weren't warriors. They had never been warriors. "How many minutes until they fire?" she asked, her voice steady despite everything. Her first officer, Kethar, consulted the failing systems. 15, maybe less. They're charging weapons on all vessels. Liraval nodded. The Viridians had known this might happen when they fled their homeworld after refusing to surrender their unique biotechnology to the hegemony. The militaristic alliance had been expanding across 3 sectors, absorbing or destroying any civilization that refused to submit. "Send the children to the core chambers," she ordered. "It might buy them a few more minutes." The comm system crackled to life, the harsh voice of the hegemony commander filling the bridge. "Viridian vessel, this is your final warning. Surrender your scientists and research data or be eliminated. You have 10 minutes to comply." Liraval didn't respond. The hegemony would harvest for people's biotech, weaponize it, and use it to subjugate more worlds. Millions would suffer. She couldn't allow that. "Captain," a young technician called out, confusion evident in his voice. "I'm detecting another ship approaching at impossible speeds." Liraval rushed to the scanner. "Hegemony reinforcements." "No, the signature is." "I've never seen anything like it." On the main view screen, a streak of blue-white light tore through the darkness of space, moving with such velocity that it seemed to bend reality around it. The hegemony ships immediately shifted formation, weapons redirecting toward this new threat. The streak slowed, resolving into a sleek vessel unlike anything the Viridians had seen before. It was roughly the size of a small frigate but shaped like a predator bird, with swept-back wings that pulsed with energy. No visible engines, no external weapon systems, just smooth, dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Unknown vessel," the hegemony commander broadcast on all frequencies. "You have entered a military engagement zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The response came immediately, a female voice with an accent Liraval couldn't place. "This isn't a military engagement. It's an execution, and I don't take kindly to bullies. Identify yourself," demanded the hegemony commander. A pause. Captain Ilara Rice, formerly of the Earth Alliance Vanguard, currently self-employed. A human. Liraval felt her heart skip. Humans were relatively new to interstellar politics, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 70 years earlier. They were known for their unpredictability, their adaptability, and their stubborn refusal to join any of the major galactic powers. The hegemony had been trying to court them as allies for years. "Captain Reyes," the hegemony commander's tone changed, becoming almost diplomatic. "This doesn't concern Earth or humanity. These refugees harbored dangerous technology that threatens stability in this sector. Stand down." "Funny thing about humans," Reyes replied, her ship now positioned directly between the Eternal Dawn and the hegemony fleet. "We have this annoying habit of making other people's problems our own, especially when those people can't defend themselves." The human vessel's engines flared bright blue, and suddenly it was moving again, so fast that the view screen could barely track it. It streaked toward the nearest hegemony warship, dancing around plasma bolts as if they were moving in slow motion. "What is she doing?" Kethar whispered. "1 ship against 8. Liraval couldn't answer. She was transfixed by what she was witnessing. The human vessel wasn't just evading. It was hunting. It closed with the first hegemony ship, and suddenly ports opened along its hull, releasing a swarm of what looked like miniature drones. They attached themselves to the warship's weapons arrays and detonated in perfect synchronization. The hegemony vessel's weapons went dark. Not destroyed, just disabled. The human craft didn't pause, already accelerating toward its next target, executing maneuvers that should have torn apart any conventional ship. The hegemony responded with full salvos, filling space with destructive energy. Yet somehow, the human vessel predicted every shot, moving through gaps that shouldn't have existed. "She's buying us time," Lervol realized suddenly. "Officer Kethar, redirect all power to engine repairs." "But Captain, even if we can restart the engines, we can't outrun the hegemony fleet." "We don't need to outrun them all. We just need to reach the Centauri Nebula." Lervol pointed to the distant purple-tinged cloud visible on their long-range scanners. "Its radiation will mask our signature." As the Viridian crew rushed to follow her orders, the battle outside intensified. The human vessel had disabled the weapons on 3 hegemony ships, but now they were adapting, coordinating their fire patterns to predict the humans' movements. A lucky shot grazed the human vessel, sending it spinning briefly before Reyes regained control. The ship's outer hull glowed where the plasma had struck, revealing a network of intricate patterns beneath the surface, some kind of advanced shielding technology. "This is Captain Reyes to the Viridian vessel." The human's voice came through clearly on their comms. "I can keep them occupied for about 15 minutes. Whatever you're planning, do it fast." Lervol hesitated only a moment before responding. "We're attempting to restart our engines. We need to reach the nebula." "Understood. I'll clear you a path." The human vessel suddenly changed tactics. Instead of disabling weapons, it began targeting the hegemony ship's propulsion systems. One by one, the pursuing vessels found themselves spinning helplessly, their engines sabotaged with surgical precision. "Who is she?" Kethar asked, watching the battle unfold. "And why would a human risk everything for us?" Lervol had been wondering the same thing. Humans had no formal alliance with the Viridians. Their worlds were parsecs away, their interests seemingly unaligned. Yet here was one, fighting with everything. She had to protect strangers. The ship's engines sputtered to life. "Captain, we have partial propulsion," the engineering chief called out. "It won't be pretty, but we can move." "Set course for the nebula. Maximum achievable speed," Lervol ordered. The Eternal Dawn began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing velocity. 3 of the hegemony ships were completely disabled. 2 more were struggling with limited functionality, but the remaining 3 were still operational, and they'd noticed their prey escaping. "The human can't hold off 3 warships," Kethar said, his voice tight. As if hearing him, Reyes's vessel executed a move that defied the laws of physics as the Viridians understood them. It seemed to fold space around itself, disappearing from where 3 plasma bursts converged and reappearing behind the lead hegemony ship. What happened next was too fast to follow. The human vessel traced a pattern across the warship's hull, leaving behind what looked like molten metal in its wake. The hegemony vessel's lights flickered and died. "That's not possible," one of the Viridian engineers whispered. "She's rewriting their ship's operational codes through direct hull contact. No species has that technology. Apparently, humans did." The Eternal Dawn continued its desperate flight toward the nebula, while behind them, Captain Reyes engaged the 2 remaining functional hegemony ships with impossible maneuvers and weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. A massive energy spike registered on their sensors. One of the hegemony ships, the flagship, was charging its main cannon, not aiming at the human vessel, but at the fleeing Eternal Dawn. "They're going to fire on us," Kethar shouted. "Full power to aft shields." But Lervol knew their shields couldn't withstand such an assault. They were still 5 minutes from the nebula's edge. 5 minutes they didn't have. The hegemony cannon fired, a beam of concentrated energy that cut through space like a blade. The Viridians braced for impact, for the end. It never came. The human vessel had positioned itself directly in the path of the beam, taking the full force of the blast. The ship's strange hull absorbed the energy, glowing brighter and brighter until it was painful to look at on the view screen. She sacrificed herself, Lurval whispered, grief for this unknown human savior clutching at her heart. But then, impossibly, the glow began to recede. The human vessel still existed, its hull rippling with absorbed energy. It turned toward the Hegemony flagship and released the stolen energy back in a concentrated burst. The Hegemony shields failed instantly, and its hull cracked open like an egg, atmosphere venting into space as emergency systems engage. "Captain," Kethar called out, his voice filled with awe. "The human is hailing us again." Reyes's voice came through, strained but determined. "Keep going. I'll be right behind you." But even as she spoke, sensors detected a new arrival. Emerging from faster-than-light travel came a vessel that dwarfed all others on the battlefield. A Hegemony dreadnought, its hull bristling with weapons. "Attention, rogue human vessel," a new voice broadcast, cold and mechanical. "This is Admiral Vexthor of the Hegemony Special Operations Division. Your interference has been classified as an act of war against the Hegemony. Prepare to face judgment." From the dreadnought's hangar bay emerged a single ship, smaller than the others, but emanating an energy signature that made the Viridian sensors fluctuate wildly. Its design was similar to Reyes's vessel, but twisted, corrupted somehow. "Reyes," Admiral Vexthor continued, "you should recognize our newest weapon. We call it the Mimic. It's been programmed with every combat maneuver in your impressive repertoire, along with predictive algorithms to counter anything new you might attempt." For the first time, uncertainty entered Reyes's voice as she responded, "You copied my ship's design. Not just the design, Captain. We copied you. Every neural pattern, every instinct, every split-second decision that made you the Alliance's best pilot. All harvested during your last mission for them, and now weaponized against you." The Eternal Dawn continued its desperate flight toward the nebula. But Lurval couldn't take her eyes off the view screen, off the human who had risked everything for them, and now faced a nightmare of her own making. The Mimic vessel accelerated toward Reyes, matching her speed exactly. The two ships began a deadly dance against the backdrop of stars, each anticipating the other's moves with uncanny precision. "We're entering the nebula, Captain," Kethar reported. "Our sensors will be compromised, but so will theirs." Lurval nodded. "Slow to navigational speed, and keep monitoring that battle as long as possible." As the purple gases of the nebula began to envelop their ship, Lurval watched the human and her mirror image locked in combat, wondering what could possibly drive someone to fight so fiercely for strangers. The last thing she saw before the nebula obscured their sensors was Captain Ilara Reyes's vessel executing an impossible maneuver, plunging directly toward the heart of the Hegemony dreadnought, the Mimic in close pursuit. And then, nothing but the swirling purple mists of their temporary sanctuary. The Senderi Nebula embraced the Eternal Dawn in its purple haze, electromagnetic interference scrambling their sensors and cloaking them from Hegemony tracking systems. Captain Lurval stood at the viewport, her iridescent skin reflecting the nebula's shifting colors as she stared into the cosmic mist. Somewhere out there, a human fought, and possibly died for them. "Captain," Kethar approached, datapad in hand. "Engineering reports our core reactor is stabilizing. We can maintain this position for approximately 72 hours. Lurval nodded absently, her thoughts still with Captain Reyes. "Any sign of pursuit?" "None yet, but our sensors are limited in the nebula." A young Viridian child approached Lurval, tugging gently at her uniform. The child's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with curiosity. Why did the human help us? It was the question everyone aboard was asking. Humans were known for their unpredictability, but self-sacrifice for an unrelated species, that defied explanation. "I don't know," Lurval admitted, kneeling to meet the child's gaze. but I hope we get the chance to ask her." As if summoned by her words, the ship's proximity alert sounded, muted by the nebula's interference but unmistakable. A vessel was approaching. "Battle stations," Kethar called out. But Laravel raised her hand. "Wait, look at the signature." Through the purple haze came the sleek form of Captain Rice's vessel, moving slowly, its hull bearing new scars. Portions of its surface flickered with energy discharges, and one of its wing-like projections appeared partially severed. "She survived," Laravel whispered, relief flooding through her. The human ship drifted alongside the Eternal Dawn, and moments later, their communication system activated. "Viridian vessel," Rice's voice came through, strained but steady, requesting permission to dock. "My ship needs repairs, and I could use some medical attention." Laravel didn't hesitate. "Permission granted, Captain Rice. And thank you." 30 minutes later, Laravel stood in the Eternal Dawn's small medical bay, watching as their physician tended to the human's wounds. Captain Ilara Rice was smaller than Laravel had imagined, her frame compact and lean. Her skin was a rich brown, contrasting with the white medical bed. Dark hair was pulled back from a face that bore both fresh wounds and old scars. But it was her eyes that captured Laravel's attention, deep brown, alert despite her injuries, and filled with a determination that seemed to burn from within. "The mimic?" Laravel asked quietly. A grim smile crossed Rice's face. "Let's just say it wasn't as good at improvisation as the original." She winced as the physician applied a regenerative compound to a deep gash on her arm. "But the dreadnought escaped. They'll be searching for us. How did you find us in the nebula?" Rice tapped a small device on her wrist. "I placed a quantum entangled tracker on your hull during the initial engagement. One-way signal, undetectable by hegemony scanners." Laravel frowned. "You planned this from the beginning." "I've been tracking the hegemony's movements for months," Rice explained, sitting up despite the physician's protests. "When I learned they were hunting Viridian refugees, I positioned myself to intercept." "But why? Earth has no alliance with Viridia. My people have never even visited your world." Something flashed in the human's eyes. Pain, but not physical. 6 years ago, I led a classified mission for the Earth Alliance. We were testing a new faster-than-light drive in uncharted space when we encountered a damaged vessel. Viridian. Laravel's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with surprise. "I never heard of such an encounter." "You wouldn't have. It was a research vessel, the Twilight Seeker. They were far from home, studying stellar phenomena. We rendered assistance, spent 3 weeks making repairs together." Rice's voice softened with the memory. "I learned much about your people during that time. Your dedication to knowledge, your reverence for life, your refusal to develop weapons even for self-defense." She paused, her hand unconsciously touching a pendant around her neck, a small crystal that glowed with a faint inner light. "When we parted ways, their lead scientist, Neroval, gave me this crystal, said it was a symbol of their gratitude and a reminder that different species across the stars could find common ground." Laravel's breath caught. "Neroval was my brother. He and his entire research team were declared lost 5 years ago." Rice's eyes met hers, filled with sorrow and resolve. "They weren't lost. They were captured by the hegemony. I didn't learn this until after I'd left the Alliance. My superiors knew and did nothing. Political complications, they said." The pieces began to fall into place for Laravel. "So this is about revenge." "Justice," Rice corrected. "And a promise I made to myself. Your brother and his team showed me the best of what sentient life can be. Curious, kind, devoted to discovery rather than destruction. The hegemony represents the opposite. They take, they dominate, they destroy anything they can't control." In the silence that followed, the ship's alert system activated. Kethar's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, we're detecting multiple vessels entering the nebula. Hegemony signatures." Rice was on her feet instantly, ignoring her injuries. "They're using the dreadnought sensors to cut through the interference." We need to move. Where? Lurval asked. The Dawn is still damaged. We can't outrun them. The human's expression hardened with determination. You don't need to. I'll draw them off while you head deeper into the nebula. That's suicide, Lurval protested. Your ship is damaged, and even at full capacity, you can't take on a dreadnought and its escorts. Reyes smiled, a fierce expression that contained no humor. Who said anything about taking them on? I'm going to activate the Starfire protocol. The words meant nothing to Lurval, but the tone with which Reyes spoke them, reverent and resolute, suggested something of immense significance. Reyes continued, her voice taking on a formal quality. My vessel carries a prototype system developed in secret by a faction within Earth's military. It was designed as the ultimate deterrent, a self-replicating energy matrix that, once released, could theoretically consume an entire fleet. A superweapon, Kether said, having joined them in the medical bay. You humans built a planet killer. No, Reyes shook her head emphatically. The Starfire protocol doesn't harm organic life, only technology. It's designed to disable, not destroy. The problem is, it's untested at full scale, and once activated, I won't be able to control it. It might disable my ship along with the hegemonies. Then why risk it? Lurval asked. Because your people, your knowledge, your peaceful philosophy, need to survive. The galaxy needs what the Viridians represent. Reyes met Lurval's gaze unflinchingly. Your brother believed that different species across the stars could find common ground. I intend to prove him right. Before Lurval could respond, the ship shuddered violently. The nebula outside the viewport flashed with weapons fire. They found us, Kether reported grimly. Reyes was already moving toward the docking bay. Get your people to the central chambers. If the protocol works as designed, your ship will lose power temporarily, but should restart within minutes. Lurval followed her, and if it doesn't work as designed, then at least the hegemony won't get what they came for. The human paused, turning back. Captain Lurval, if I don't return, tell your people about Earth. Tell them not all humans are like the ones who ignored your brother's fate. Some of us still believe in standing for what's right, no matter the cost. With those words, Reyes disappeared into the docking tube, returning to her damaged vessel. Moments later, the sleek ship detached from the eternal dawn and darted into the nebula's swirling mists. Lurval watched on a failing sensor display as Reyes' ship flew directly toward the approaching hegemony fleet, one small vessel against a dreadnought and 6 escort ships. The human wasn't running. She was challenging them, drawing them away from the refugee ship. All power to life support, Lurval ordered, and get everyone to the shielded central chambers. The Viridians hurried to comply as the distant flashes of combat illuminated the nebula. On the sensor display, they watched as Reyes executed a series of impossible maneuvers, evading concentrated fire while maintaining a course that kept the hegemony ship's attention fixed on her. She can't keep this up, Kether said quietly. Not against those odds, not with a damaged ship. Lurval didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the display, where Reyes' vessel had suddenly ceased evasive action. It hovered, seemingly vulnerable, as the hegemony ships closed in for the kill. What is she doing? Kether whispered. Then they saw it, a pulse of energy unlike anything their sensors had ever registered. It began as a small sphere around Reyes' ship, then expanded outward at impossible speed. The energy wasn't destructive. It was transformative, changing the very nature of space as it passed through it. The Starfire protocol. One by one, the hegemony ships went dark as the energy wave washed over them. Their weapons powered down, their engines failed, their communications ceased. The mighty dreadnought, pride of the hegemony fleet, drifted lifelessly, its imposing silhouette now nothing more than a darkened hulk against the nebula's glow. And at the center of it all, Reyes' ship also went dark, caught in the very effect she had unleashed. Then, without warning, the Eternal Dawn's systems began to fail. Lights flickered and died. Environmental controls shut down. Even the artificial gravity wavered. The protocol, Lurvol realized. It's affecting us too. For long, tense minutes, the Viridian refugees huddled in darkness, breathing the increasingly stale air, waiting to see if Reyes's prediction would prove true, that their systems would restart after the energy wave passed. Finally, a flicker. Then another. One by one, the Dawn's systems reactivated, power returning to the ancient vessel. Lurvol rushed to the bridge, directing all functional sensors toward the last known position of Reyes's ship. There, Kethar pointed to a faint signature among the disabled hegemony vessels. Very weak energy readings, but it's her ship. Prepare a rescue team, Lurvol ordered. Full environmental suits. We don't know what conditions we'll find aboard. 20 minutes later, Lurvol led a team of 3 through the nebula in a small shuttle. They approached Reyes's vessel cautiously, noting the strange patterns now etched into its hull, remnants of the protocol's energy, still dissipating harmlessly into space. They found Captain Ilara Reyes in the cockpit, unconscious but alive, her hands still gripping the controls as if, even in unconsciousness, she refused to surrender her ship. Medical scans showed elevated neural activity, but no permanent damage. As they transferred her to a stretcher, her eyes fluttered open briefly, focusing on Lurvol with effort. "Did it work?" she whispered. "Yes," Lurvol assured her, grasping the human's hand. "The hegemony fleet is disabled. Your Starfire protocol worked perfectly." A small smile touched Reyes's lips before she drifted back into unconsciousness. 3 days later, when Reyes finally awoke in the Eternal Dawn's medical bay, she found Lurvol waiting. "Welcome back, Captain," the Viridian said warmly. "You've been the subject of much conversation among my people. The children have started playing a new game. They call it the Human and the Hunter ships." Reyes sat up slowly, testing her limbs. "How long until the hegemony vessels regain power?" "They won't," Lurvol replied. "Whatever your protocol did, it wasn't temporary. Their systems are completely fried. We've received word that rescue ships are coming for their crews, but the vessels themselves are dead in space." Reyes absorbed this with mixed emotions. "And my ship? Functional, though our engineers are still studying the changes the protocol made to its systems. It appears the energy wave permanently altered its technological signature. The hegemony won't be able to track it anymore." "Good," Reyes nodded. "Because there's something I need to show you." She reached for the data pad beside her bed, fingers moving across its surface with purpose. "Before I activated the protocol, I accessed the Dreadnought's secure database. I found this." She turned the screen toward Lurvol. On it was a star chart marking a remote hegemony research facility. "Your brother and his team," Reyes said softly. "They're alive. The hegemony has kept them prisoner, forcing them to adapt Viridian biotechnology for military applications." Lurvol's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with shock and hope. "You're certain?" "The records were updated 3 days ago. They're alive, and now we know where they are." "We could never reach them," Lurvol said, reality tempering her hope. "Not with just one damaged refugee ship and your vessel." Reyes smiled, that same fierce expression that contained more determination than joy. "Who said anything about just us? The hegemony made a critical mistake when they attacked your people. They showed the galaxy who they really are, not peacekeepers, not administrators, but conquerors." She stood, moving to the viewport where the nebula's purple swirls were beginning to thin as the Eternal Dawn approached its edge. "I've transmitted the evidence of their attack on peaceful refugees to every independent world and neutral station in this sector, along with proof of their illegal weapons development programs using captive Viridian scientists. The Alliance, your people, they'll help us?" Lurvol asked. Reyes's expression darkened momentarily. "The Alliance follows political expediency. But humans, individual humans, when they learn what's happening, that's different." She turned back to face Lurvol, her eyes burning with the same inner fire that had driven her to stand alone against a fleet. Your brother was right about finding common ground across the stars. The hegemony believes in domination through fear. But there are others, humans, Viridians, and 100 species between, who believe in something else, who will fight for it. Outside the viewport, at the nebula's edge, multiple ships began to appear, small, independent vessels of various designs and origins, a ragtag fleet of freighters, salvagers, and modified civilian craft. The comms system activated, and a dozen different voices called out greetings in various languages. Captain Reyes, a gruff voice, said above the others. The Free Traders Collective received your transmission. We brought friends. Lurvol stared in amazement as more ships continued to arrive. Not military vessels, but the ships of ordinary people who had chosen to answer a call for justice. You see, Reyes said quietly, that's the thing about standing against bullies. Sometimes you inspire others to stand with you. She extended her hand to Lurvol in the human gesture of partnership. What do you say, Captain? Ready to go rescue your brother and show the hegemony that the galaxy isn't theirs to conquer? Lurvol took the human's hand, her own bioluminescent patterns glowing with renewed hope. Lead the way, Captain Reyes. As the Eternal Dawn and Reyes's vessel, now nicknamed Starfire by the Viridian children, moved to join the growing fleet of volunteers, word spread across the sector. A human had stood alone against the hegemony to protect a peaceful species, and in doing so, she had ignited something that had been missing in a galaxy grown complacent under the shadow of power: courage. The hegemony had always relied on fear to maintain control, but they were about to learn what happens when fear is replaced by something stronger. The knowledge that across the vast distances between stars, different species could indeed find common ground in the simple belief that justice matters. And it had all started with one human who refused to stand by when others needed help, who chose to feed the bullies fire instead.